Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and brought to you by Lipscomb and Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, the CEO of City Current, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and brought to you by Lipscomb and Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. We have with us Logan Guleff. He is a television personality, an award-winning cookbook author, entrepreneur. He is someone that you've seen all over TV as the 2014 winner, the second season of the MasterChef Junior show with Gordon Ramsay. He's also been Time Magazine's 30 Most Influential Teens. He's all over Forbes, pretty much anywhere that you have a TV, a magazine, and there's cooking involved, you see Logan. So Logan, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
So you've become a celebrity here in the Mid-South for sure. I get a chance to see you all over the city, and as soon as you show up, even walking in these doors, it's like, wait, is that Logan? Is that Logan? And so, the cool thing about this is we get a chance to talk, obviously, about cooking, but let's back up. Give us a little bit, growing up here in Memphis, but really talk about your family, your mom, your dad. Give us a little perspective on just, your family and growing up.
All right, so, some of my earliest memories kind of always go back to food. Like, my earliest memory is I was like 3, and I had this Thomas the Tank Engine cake. And it was just the coolest thing. It had donuts for wheels. It was just, like, the most amazing thing. And then kind of I kept going, and I remember like some other parts of my cooking journey, and my mom and dad, they've always been really, 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 really supportive. They've just done this incredible job of like helping me with whatever passions I have and whatever problems I have. So, kind of along this journey, I've gone through a lot of things. I've gone through a lot of school. I've been homeschooled since I was like 4. I did go to downtown Clue once. Needless to say, that didn't really work out. So.
Well, part of that, though, is you've got an odd schedule. I mean, for a teenager on your end, when you look at the amount of time that you're out doing things like this, from media, cooking shows, writing, going out and speaking, creating nonprofit opportunity, I mean, you're doing a lot. So you're very, very active. You've got an odd schedule and even traveling literally all over the world. So that makes it to where you almost have to be homeschooled.
Oh, yeah. In order to really get the full potential out of any real career, you have to put a lot of things to the side. And, homeschool really allows me to, like, kind of slish-slosh my time around. So I can take it from one cup from, school, and then switch it over to my career, and then, take a little bit out of, like, my free time or my time that I spend with my friends and put that into the work cup or the school cup. And that way, in one sense, I can have this super, super fluid schedule where I can go, all right, well, this week I am just working on criminology, and I'm going to finish the book. And then I can say, all right, well, next week I'm working on these 3 work opportunities. I've got to film this video, I've got to do this podcast, and I got to do this. And then I say, well, I can sneak in school here, here, and here, and then I can work on math over the weekend. So because of that, homeschool really allows me to keep my schedule, like, always adaptable. Like, I can usually always change it. I can always accommodate something bigger. So, like, if I get asked to do something like go cook at the James Beard House, I don't say, oh, my God, I've got this school project that's due that day that's been, like, half of my grade. I don't have that. I can just say, all right, well, great. I can work on it for this time, and I can block out those days, and I can go do it. And
that also puts you a little bit on a 24/7 schedule, because when you look at it, you're not operating on a kind of typical schedule to that point. It's like you might have to be gone for a couple days, but then you make up that time elsewhere, and that time might be at 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, definitely. One of the things about it is, like, you think, kind of just move it around, and you're like, well, this piece can fit in here. I can get this done here. I can finish this book. And if you just work on all the little things and tie them all up together, you can still finish school, and you can still finish most of the career stuff that you want to do, and you can still have a lot of fun while doing it.
Yeah, but that takes obviously a tremendous amount of dedication, not just from you, but from your parents. Talk about, because I know you mentioned before your dad, no cooking skills really, but talk about like where are the cooking skills, because is it one of those where your mom, obviously you said before it's not your dad,
It's
but
definitely not my dad.
Give us some of the background on the family and the cooking.
All right, well, my dad burns Kool-Aid.
Which how do you burn Kool-Aid?
I don't know. Ask him, man. He sucks at cooking.
We'll have to have you
bad.
down on a podcast at some point.
Oh my god,
that'll be the question. How do you burn Kool-Aid?
He burns anything. He like goes in the kitchen and Mom and I would go, "Oh my god, Dad's in the kitchen! Oh my god, sound the alarm!" It's terrible.
So does it come from your mom?
My mom, she does a really good job making dinner, so she can make us really good hot meal really quickly. She can do that really well. She doesn't cook from a recipe. She really keeps a nice fluid style. But, she doesn't do what I do. What I do is something different. I create a recipe, I create a flavor, I create an idea, and then I kind of try that all into like a journey or something bigger. She makes dinner. Really good, really hot. You're gonna have a really nice time.
So she feeds you, you tell a story.
Yeah, it's kind of like she gets you to eat.
Which,
to
if
live.
you're not fed, you can't tell a story.
Well,
so
you
let's be
can't.
honest.
So, she does a really good job with that. Like, you come over to our house, you're gonna have a really nice dinner. It's gonna be hot. You're gonna be like, oh man, look, there's a veggie. Oh, there's really nice meat. Oh, there's nice starch. That's all great, but when it comes to my cooking, you're not gonna have like a gastrique, or you're not gonna have like a 25-hour pork belly. You're gonna have a really good steak or some really good ravioli. So in that sense, we're very, very different in our cooking styles. Like for me, I can get very, very, very caught up in little details, like little things like, the carrot isn't sweet enough, or, I really need this roasted celery flavor in here that I can't quite get. Well, she's like, oh yeah, the steak's cooking. I've got 10 minutes left on the bread. I've got 2 minutes left on the steak, and I've got 3 minutes left on my veggies. So I'm gonna turn on the heat on my veggies, and I'm gonna get it all done in 2 minutes. She can do that perfectly. And that's one of the things that I think is very hard for a lot of people to get about cooking, is that there's so many different styles and ways that you can think about it. Especially with kind of how everyone treats fine dining and how everybody treats regular dining and regular eating. There's just so many different levels of good.
So what on your end, especially with your mom, because we were talking off mic, what would you consider kind of a traditional family meal or a dish?
Well, the quintessential family dinner is Christmas dinner, naturally, and we make homemade ravioli.
Nice.
So we have this, my great-grandmother's recipe, Baba's recipe, very amazing ravioli, tastes delicious. We make the homemade pasta, we make the filling with the spinach, the ground beef, and the Parmesan. And so then we get that into the casserole, we put the sausage on it, bake it. It's just the ultimate family dinner, because it really shows, actually my mom's never had another Christmas dinner other than that.
Wow.
So if you kind of look at that, obviously my mom is kind of old, so if you look at that, you could think...
I like how you ask her to leave the room so you can say this stuff about her.
Well,
come on, she's kind of old.
Well, I mean, if you look at me, I'm
say that with all love,
I'm
Mom.
16, and if you think about just the amount of times that you make the dish and that you still love it, that you're able to think, like, I can taste it right now. And I can just feel at home, Christmas.
Yeah.
I can tell the trees over there. I can smell it. Kind of just thinking of it can put me in that sensory place, which is and that's really incredible.
To your point, I mean, that's the power of food. That's the power of storytelling. But to your point, that's also the power of tradition.
Yes.
And then, I mean, the fact that it doesn't even have to be served, and yet you can smell it, you can almost taste it, you can feel it, and you can also feel the love of the family being together around it.
Yeah, it's really a magical dish. I never have another Christmas dinner. It's just the best.
Awesome. So you kind of talked about obviously where the kind of the seed was planted, but talk about just where you started experimenting and how you fell in love with the idea of cooking, but also, to your point, really telling a story and finding flavors and creating new recipes.
Yeah, well, the seeds started to really turn into like a little sapling or whatever seed germinates into when I was 8. that was when I entered my first recipe contest. And it was the Jif Most Creative Peanut Butter Sandwich contest. And I was there, and I was making this thing. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do a peanut butter burger. That was my principal idea. That was where I started. And I narrowed it down to peanut butter turkey burger. And then I narrowed it down to a peanut butter Asian turkey burger. And then from there, I started with this yakisoba sauce. I started getting the garlic, the ginger. I started mixing it all into the ground turkey with, I think I put like a little bit of mushroom, a little bit of celery in there. And then I got it out, firmed it into the patty, and the patty was too wet. So I coated it in cornstarch. And I said, well, if I can coat it in cornstarch, I might as well coat it in something else too to add some crunch. So I coated it in peanuts. And I put it in the pan seared it up, cooked it, and I put it on the burger with the kind of the sauce, yakisoba sauce with like a little bit of honey, a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of sesame seeds. And so I spread that around. Then I did like a broccoli slaw, and then I did a slice of apple. And
this is something that none of us would ever think of.
And
like
this was me at 8.
Said, I was like, I would see this on TV, yes, but I would never think of that myself.
This was just kind of like my headspace when I was 8. And, it was really good. Took a lot of steps, took a lot of time, took a lot of prep. Very intensive, but it was good. And, my mom was like, Logan, we need to start with the bread. And I was like, no, because this was back when we were in the market and we were shopping around because we were going to get all the ingredients at Kroger. And I was like, no, we start with the patty. That's number 1. We don't start with the bread. And it just kind of shows.
So you were arguing with your mom at age 8 on where we start.
Where you start with creative. And I think that it really shows kind of the difference between our styles of cooking. With the burger, Mom thinks, I'm going to start with the bread. What kind of bread? Am I going to put it on brioche? Am I going to put it on like a sesame seed bread? While me, I'm thinking, well, what's the patty? What kind of sauce is going with the patty? What's the overall flavor profile? And this was back when I was 8.
But the cool thing is, so you're not, crazy. This isn't you like going to culinary school. This is you creating this out of your own mind and creativity.
Yeah, it's just like me and the pen and paper and my mom. And we're there. And so it's just one of the craziest things when you get into like recipe development and you get into trying to create flavors. And it even happens to me, like sometimes I'll just cook for fun, right? Go into the kitchen, whip something up. I don't know. What was the last thing I whipped up?
Well, and I love the fact that when you do that, you share that all over social media too. So you use that as an inspiration.
I usually
creating, yeah.
I usually try and share what I create. Usually, if it's really good, I share it, or if it looks pretty, I share it. But sometimes, like I had a little bit of brie left over from something, and I was like, all right, so I'm gonna do this like sriracha rosewater, kind of streaky reduction. And then I'm going to put that on the thing, and I'm going to do like a cardamom coffee kind of rub, and I'm going to grill the brie. Well, it was very interesting. The whole thing didn't really work out, but the little sriracha reduction I made was like perfect for a spicy pickle because it had this floral element, it had the spicy element, and it was slightly sweet. So you had like a sweet heat, floury pickle, which was just kind of this like, oh wow. So this is like, I made this for this, and this didn't work, but this does work, and it really works here.
I know that you've shared, I'm getting way off from where I wanted to go with this, but you've done some things with restaurants, but like even with what you're talking about there, like that could be a really amazing appetizer. So I'm thinking, as you're creating this, do you think, wow, okay, wait, this could be something that they serve in a restaurant, or do you want to keep it for yourself and say, okay, this is my next cookbook?
Well, with that kind of stuff, I think to myself, how much time did it take to create this? Usually not too long. So sometimes I write it down, sometimes I don't. And that's really one of the things that's one of the hardest judging points for me is when I go to write it down. If I say, all right, I'm going to write this down. Like I make a spice rub, I put it on something, I love it, I write it down. But with something like that I just kind of threw together for this one-off project that only took like 20 minutes, I thought to myself, do I write it down? And that's one of the hardest things for me is to figure out when do I write it down and when do I let it go? So like I remember it. I remember what I did. And I didn't write it down. I didn't remake it. But I remember the principal ingredients so I can recreate it. And that's kind of one of the interesting things is sometimes I think, well, what am I going to do with this? Like a Korea rub, I think, I can possibly market this and turn it into a spice blend that you can buy later. While with this, I think, it's good. I might need it later, but I don't really need to write it down now.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that kind of is one of those kind of tough points for me. Like, I might come up with an idea like, let's see, what else?
Well, part of that just is experimentation, and to your point, is it something that's a finished product, or is it something that, could be used somewhere else and it's a piece of it versus the finished product? Let's go ahead and fast forward, because I want to cover MasterChef Junior, and I mean, this is a big opportunity
big
to put
moment.
you on a national stage.
Yeah.
And so talk about how you even got selected to be on the show, and then we'll talk about the experience on the show.
Well, it all starts with my family. So we're sitting around the living room, right? Dad turns on the TV, MasterChef Junior comes on, and he's like, oh my God. Now, my dad loves reality TV. He's a big fan of Survivor, all those reality TV shows. Massive fan.
So
and
as long as he doesn't have to cook, he can survive.
Oh yeah. He can watch it. He loves it. He's watching MasterChef. He's watched Hell's Kitchen. He's a big reality TV junkie. And so MasterChef Junior comes on, and he's just like, oh my gosh, look, Logan, it's MasterChef, your favorite show with kids. Isn't this the greatest thing ever? And I look at the first episode, and I start getting a little pissed. And so I eventually say to my dad, hey Dad.
Because you're like, you could do it better?
Well, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, you should really turn this off. And Dad was like, why? And I was like, well, I could win that show. And then Dad was like, oh, really? Because he's watched reality TV, and he knows about the odds of winning. And so he was like, all right, I'll take you up on that. And so he came home the next day from work with the stack of audition papers. They were really thick, massive amount of paper. And he was like, all right, are you going to fill out the application? And
So he had just gone online and downloaded the application?
Looked up the application, got it, printed it up, brought it home.
And you had been 11?
I was, I was still 11 at the time. And so I was like, all right, fine. And so I signed all the papers, and then it kept going. We kept up the little rivalry. It was still going, and then eventually it was like, all right, well, you're going to have to take him to Dallas and to audition. And so Dad was like, all right, I'll drive you to Dallas. And so we drove to Dallas. We go through the process, and we go through even more. We go through the callback, go through the psychological check, go through the contract. We're
what do they
back
ask
home.
you in a psychological check?
Just kind of stuff like if you're not gonna kill yourself if you lose, like making sure you're totally mentally stable and you're not gonna go off the rails if something bad happens. Kind of important.
Yeah.
So we
especially
make it
for a kid where that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's really a lot, and it's a lot when you're there. And so eventually, we get called up to go on the first we're called up as an extra, and then we're called up to go on the show, and then we're on the show. And I walked in first day, and everyone's talking about this crazy stuff. They're talking about pappardelle. They're talking about streaks. They're talking about all these crazy terms, mise en place, all this stuff that I was like, oh my God, I've never heard these terms before. And
because once again, it's not like you've gone through formal culinary school.
No, I've done no formal culinary training. I took a fish class with Chef Ben for 2 hours on fish and shellfish because Mom's allergic. And so I'm there, and I'm kind of having this little oh my God, what I signed up for moment. Right. Because all these kids are like, oh yeah, I've got a private chef. Oh yeah, I've got a catering company. Oh yeah, I've got a restaurant. And I'm like,
Yeah.
So I kind of have this oh my God moment. And then I kind of go back to my cooking. I remember my style. I remember what makes my cooking special. And so then I start going through the challenges. I start kind of adapting. I start winning. I start kind of learning and really growing. And then, the next biggest challenge was really the pop-up restaurant. Because that challenge was that was my goal, was to make it there so I could earn the chef coat. And so that Gordon Ramsay could quintessentially yell at me. Because that's just one of the dreams I had, was to meet Gordon and go on there and have him yell at me. Because that's what he does. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be the coolest thing. And it was amazing. And, I'll never forget it. It was just the coolest dream come true moment. Because you're cooking on the line, you've got guests, you've got covers, you've got different dishes, you've got fire 2 fish, fire 2 fillets, 1 order of appetizers. And it was just the most incredible moment ever. to be like working on the line, having Gordon expedite, and then having him go, "Oh, this isn't good enough," and throw it out, and then like you have that "oh my god" moment.
You're like, "That's what I wanted."
Oh my god, yay! And then you're like, "Oh crap, he's gonna kill me."
But even just looking at the thing, in terms of like your entree, salt crusted, is it branzino?
Oh yeah, my winning.
Yeah, it was the winning. Yeah,
Yeah.
And he remarked it as the boldest, craziest, and dessert of Meyer lemon madeleines with goat cheese, mousse, and a berry compote. So I mean, like once again,
crazy.
Stuff that I would have never come up with, and yet this is what you're winning a TV show with. And he's giving you high praise.
When I reached the end there, I realized like I used so many different techniques. I'd confit, I'd pan-seared, I'd roasted, I'd pan-seared fish, meat.
How much of that was for the first time? Like you just kind of created
a good deal. My entire salmon dish, never done before, and I'd done ceviche. I'd done so many techniques that I was like, well, what's left for me to pull out of the bag? And I looked at like all the previous things I liked on Instagram, and I found salt crusted branzino, and I was like, this is one of the things I'm gonna have to go with is salt crusted fish. And then I was like, what can I do? Because the entire time I thought, well, what can I show them that I haven't showed them before? How can I keep being myself? Because this entire time I've been doing something different every round. I've baked different things. I've tried to use a different technique and a different flavor profile every time. So how can I continue that and then continue to tell a journey? Because I kind of have this like little Mediterranean journey there with kind of the pan-seared spot prawns with the smoked saffron aioli and the olive caper tapenade. Very, very Mediterranean, kind of salty, kind of very flavorful, maybe a little bit more southern. If you go to like maybe northern Africa, kind of that little area, maybe one of those islands there. And then you kind of keep going up. You go up to more of like a Naples kind of feel with like a salt-crusted fish and a roasted vegetable. And the chimichurri, which I don't really know what I was thinking there, but just gonna be honest.
You're honest.
I mean, it's herbs and it has a good flavor and it's pretty fresh. So I guess I was just trying to counterbalance it, but.
Well, and some of that too is you're in a time crunch, so it's like
you gotta do the best you can. And you're like, oh my god, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, it's like you do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah, and then you kind of go into the final bit, which is like the lemon madeleine and the goat cheese mousse and the berry compote, and that's kind of a very, I guess, more northern, like a northern France or southern France style. If you go into like a lemon madeleine, very French. You go into a berry compote, super delicious. Then you get a little bit of goat cheese mousse.
So what do you consider, like when you say be true to yourself, but yet you're using kind of a Mediterranean journey? How do you describe true to yourself? Because obviously, kind of growing up in this area, you would automatically think, okay, well, kind of Southern infused. But what do you consider true to yourself? Because obviously, you've got such breadth to your cooking styles, and creativity is a big part of who you are. So not being afraid to literally jump into kind of any sort of culture. What's your due north?
I think that one of my truest kind of styles, true to myself, is kind of going for that flavor you've never had before. Going for that flavor that you'd never expect. Putting together the ingredients that never really meet. Bringing in the elements that you wouldn't really classically expect there. Bringing in like a Mountain Dew blue jello gastrique to go with sriracha vanilla granola crunch and a pan-seared filet with a buttered shaved broccoli. You don't classically think of those to go together, but still it's one of the dishes that I really love and I had an amazing time making. Or if you look at like kind of, I never really make the same thing twice. And I always have this kind of small identity crisis when I say, well, I have to make Italian. And I say, well, oh my God, I'm not really Italian. Like I don't really cook that way. And then I kind of go into it and I can make the really amazing fresh pasta. I can make a really delicious chicken parm. I can do all that stuff really, really well, but I don't want to limit myself to only be Italian. And I don't want to limit myself to saying, oh yeah, well, I can do these really interesting new Japanese flavors that are really fun, really delicious stuff with soy sauce and mirin and all that great kind of over there flavor profile. But then I say, I don't want to be known for that. And so then I kind of keep going along. And, I think that kind of total kind of absorption into culture, and especially with food, is something that I really love a lot. And it really kind of describes how I like to travel.
Yeah.
Like when I go out and I travel, I eat at a new restaurant every day. I try to. And I always try and absorb myself into their culture, into
you
their
go to the local market.
I go to the market. I try and eat whatever they have. I sometimes buy produce and eat it. Of course, I try and be very safe. And I try and eat like what their traditional food is, what their traditional breakfast is, what they think of as their high style, what they think of as their low style, what they think is their best food. You know, trying to try everything along the way. Because if you come to Memphis and you want to like have a full Memphis experience, you got to go to like 3 barbecue places. You have to try kind of all the different styles of barbecue. And you also have to try like some of the southern food. You have to try Gus's. You have to try how that compares to Hattie B's, not Memphis. And like if you try everything, if you try like Payne's barbecue compared to Corky's barbecue compared to Top's barbecue, that gives you a really wide array of barbecue.
Yeah.
As opposed to something that you find in like Graceland. If you try barbecue at Graceland, those are all going to be very, very different experiences. So you can kind of get what we define as barbecue. And if you try some Stoll food, if you try some of Gus's fried chicken, if you try some of like Gibson's donuts, you can really get a flavor for the place. And you can tell how we think of as like higher class food, lower good food, and then kind of what, we say, well, that's not really barbecue.
Well, and to your point, that gives you a lot more dots to connect. Because, as you're talking, what's interesting is, and I know this is probably a terrible analogy for someone like you, but my wife loves to watch the Bobby Flay shows, like where they try to beat Bobby Flay, right?
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, and it's like, what you're describing, though, reminds me a lot how Bobby like almost always wins. He has no clue like what their signature dish is going to be. Some of them are like from all these different countries, and yet because of his creativity, because he's not afraid to try new things, he ends up beating him at their own signature dish. And it's like part of what you're describing is the fact that you do travel all over, and part of that is you and your parents have the freedom to do so, which is amazing. But that gives you so many dots that you can connect. So when you're thrown into these experiences or these challenges, whatever they might be, opportunities, you can literally pull from all these different sides and flavors and experiences, and you can create something that's really unique and special, yet that does have the storyline of whether it's Mediterranean or Asian or whatever it is. And I think you have the ability to create something really special as a result. So I just think it's cool when you kind of package it. And once again, it's going back to, this is really just you being creative and not afraid to try new things and to throw it out there and see what happens. Thank you for listening to our ChangeMakers podcast. City Current is a catalyst of over 100 partners joining forces and funds to power the good through free events, positive media, and philanthropy. If you like our efforts and you're looking to power the good with us, follow us on social media at City Current and check out our website at citycurrent.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. And if you know a changemaker, please reach out and let us know so we can consider them for a future show. The ChangeMakers podcast is brought to you by DataFacts. DataFacts is a national provider of trusted background screening products such as criminal searches, drug screening, employment and education verifications, and post-hire monitoring to employers of all sizes. DataFacts is one of the few background screeners that holds the stringent National Association of Professional Background Screeners accreditation. They're certified by the WBENC as a 100% woman-owned business, and in 2018, they were ranked by HRO Today's Baker's Dozen customer satisfaction ratings as one of the top background screeners in the nation. You are in good hands with DataFacts. Visit datafacts.com to learn more and make sure to mention the ChangeMakers podcast. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about traveling is like, especially if you look at like my trip to India, right? You're there, you're trying food, you're eating this crazy stuff. They have this crazy bread, this like puffed bread. There's like nothing in the center. You press it in, and then you take this like weird watery soup with, it's like weird. It's got like tomatoes and potatoes and like cumin seeds. And you pour it into your bread, and your bread depuffs, and then you eat that, and you're like, this is bizarro land. And then you get things like Italy with this weird, like, it's like a sponge. It's like this white sponge bread. Craziest thing out there. And then they also have these kati rolls, and so having a kati roll made by like school and culinary students, and then having a kati roll made by this really, really, really old restaurant that's saying, oh, well, I really like that one better. It had this flavor, this one had that flavor. And then saying, well, I could take that kati roll chicken flavor, I can put it on a pork, and I can make this really crazy barbecue pork taco. And saying, if I go with that kind of kati roll flavor set, and then I mix in some of like a classic mimosa crispness, the crunchiness of a mimosa, not a mimosa. What's that thing called?
It's good that you finally, can forget, because I forget things all the time.
It's the, I swear, it's the, oh God, what is that
just
thing
rattling
called?
off all these food names.
It's
poor Andrew and I don't even know half the stuff you're talking about.
I totally
It
forgot
just
it.
sounds delicious. Yeah, we're just hungry.
Totally
We're just over here
forgot it.
starving now.
It's
So for all
the-
you listeners that are listening, I hope you're starving right now like we are.
It's like the fried potato and peas dumpling. It's really, really good.
Just go with that. We'll never know the difference anyway.
I really apologize. I'm really sorry about this. Usually I remember something before I pull it up. But, so you can kind of take those ingredients, mush them around, and create these really interesting combos. And, as I found, like, my personal style, when I make, like, when I kind of, like, take out all objectiveness, and I take out, well, what do I really want to make? And I just say, I want to make a delicious 9-course dinner. Then I get things that are very, very interesting. Like, I get like a starter of like a cashmere pepper lamb meatball with an espresso. And then I say, all right, well, what does that go into? And then I say, well, that goes into this pork belly on a fried kill with this apple mustard gelée thing that's crazy. And then I say, well, then I want this lemon ice cream chopped salad. Like very, very thin julienne salad with kind of a little bit of citrus notes. And I say, well, what do I want after that? And so continuing down that road and thinking about flavors, textures, and overall feels for dishes, and then tying them together into menus.
So there's a thread, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest things to do is to get a menu to flow properly. To go from what's fatty to something that pairs well with it. Because you might say, well, I want something to cut that. I want to cut the fat, and I want to go with the iced salad. Or I say, well, I think I want to tie something into that, so I'm going to do like this really rich soup. Or I'm going to say, hey, I want to go with something really crispy. And so I design like maybe a crispy spicy dish or a crispy sour dish to cut or not. To kind of cut and go with that kind of fattier dish. And so it's really, the flow is one of the hardest things to do. The flow within kind of your bite on your fork that you get, the flow within the whole dish, and then the flow between all the dishes. It's kind of one of the hardest things to get.
And then the flow into my mouth.
Oh.
Into my belly.
Yep.
So talk about, because I want to cover a few more things obviously before we get to our lightning round, but talk about the cookbook, because this has become an award-winning cookbook. It's an opportunity for you to inspire, and I know that's a big part of what you're trying to do is use your platform to be able to inspire others. So share a little about this journey with the cookbook, Cooking Dreams.
Well, the cookbook, Logan Chef Notes, kind of started when I saw some fan art when I was on the show. And it was just this really, really cute manga-style fan art. And I was like, that's incredible. There's an idea there. And so then I talked to her, my artist, Miss Cindy Tan, amazing artist. And I kind of talked to her, and I was like, well, there's really an idea for something here, but I don't know how to tie it with food. And then I kind of kept thinking that I was like, well, you know what? I should make a graphic novel, because I love graphic novels, and I love graphic novels, and I love reading them. So I should make a graphic novel cookbook. And I was like, wait, how do I fuse those together? And then I was like, well, graphic food is always perfect. You can always draw food to be perfect. Like if you have a pencil, you can draw a perfect stick of butter. You can draw a perfect steak with perfect marbling. Real world, you go to the market, 9 times out of 10, there's not going to be a perfect steak. So I was like, all right, well, I think I have to have real food photos. And so then I was like, well, I'm going to have to divide it between like real food and graphic novel. So that's kind of how it started. And then I was like, well, if I go with the graphic novel story, everyone loves that. Art's amazing. And so then I started writing up characters, and I started writing up a story, and I was like, oh man, this is really fun. And then I started thinking about, well, what recipes go with that? And so then I kind of tied it all together, and I really did quite a job tying it together. So much so that when I'm trying to write the next one, I'm like, how do I get the recipe to fit into this? It's because, I had the fried rice play a role in, or the Maopao tofu play a role in the book. And that was kind of interesting. So then I kind of get my recipes together, I take the photos, shoot the shots, kind of build it all together. And then I had it, and I had varying copies. So I had the first draft with the first start, which was kind of odd. I had an alarm clock. It was kind of this bizarre start. I had it, and it was a little flip book stapled together. And then I had something bigger and thicker with a different intro. And then I had something even bigger. And then I had the original art. I was like, oh my God, this is the original art on pen and paper. This is incredible. And then, as the book progressed, I saw each of my copies get bigger and prettier and more finished and more polished. From the one that I had folded up in my pocket all the way to the finished one with color. And it was just the most incredible journey of watching something that you've created and you've worked on and you've poured so much into to finally get to a finished product. And you're like, oh my God, this is crazy.
What does it mean to you? Because you've gotten the Best in the World first cookbook. You've obviously become a TEDx speaker on it. You've got the Gourmand World Cookbook Award for the best new cookbook. So you've got some pretty cool accolades with it. What stands out to you and puts a smile on your face when you talk about just that experience, obviously, of seeing it come to life, but also to what it's been able to do to share your story, but ultimately inspire others?
I think that one of the most inspiring things was how I was able to help out my artist. She lives in Indonesia, and so I kind of set out the price, and I was like, well, I'll pay you this much for the art. And so then I money transferred her the money, and she said, this is how much a shop girl works for the whole year. So this is a year's salary for someone working in a shop. And just hearing that kind of wow, my creativity can really make me a lot of money and can really kind of change my life was just one of the most inspiring things, because she has so much talent. And just seeing that kind of impact from what is a fair price in the U.S. to what's a U.S. salary in Indonesia is wow. And kind of being able to have that impact on somebody else's life and to be able to say, hey, your talent's really amazing and you should really keep up the work, and here's this project that you've worked on, and here's a couple copies of the book that you actually drew the art for.
Yeah, you helped create.
And it's just so inspiring when I think of it that way. And then I think of all the kids who've worked on it and really learned how to cook, because I made sure that I really worked on how to teach you how to cook. I didn't want to teach you how to follow a recipe. I wanted to teach you how to saute. I wanted to teach you how to do the actual cutting. And so that when you go into another cookbook and you open up something a little bit bigger and a little bit harder, you can look at it and you can say, oh, well, I did that in Logan's book and it had photos for every step, so this will be really easy to do. And I can do it, and I can make this recipe, and I can cook. And so once you learn the basic skills, you can go on to create your own art.
Yeah.
And, also going to China was really incredible, and winning awards is really cool. But, China was really eye-opening, because it's just such a different world, and they think about food so differently. Because, I'm over there, and, me and my mom and my aunt, we're all over there, and we're walking through, and we see this, little bakery, right? And there's this, puffed ball thing dessert, and it's really puffy, and it's got, little spikes coming out of it. And we were like, oh my God, we gotta try that. So we go and we get one, and then I take a bite of it, right? Sweet, very sweet. It's brown, it's sweet. And then inside is shrimp and bean paste. I'm like, what is this?
We put shrimp and bean paste in a dessert.
In the dessert, puff ball, oh my God, this is the craziest thing ever. And it's just one of the...
And so for your mom, she's probably horrified because of the shellfish. But for you, you're like, wait, this could be a whole new meal.
Oh my God, this is a whole new dish. I'm doing a menu like this. Inspiration.
Yin and yang. So you've had a chance. You've met presidents, You've met, or the president, I should say, Obama. You've met some really amazing people, Gordon Ramsay, who will describe kind of the experience of going to the White House. Let's start there, and then give us maybe one other person outside of Gordon Ramsay that's been really kind of iconic for you to meet.
All right. So when I went on and I won the first ever Kids State Dinner, and I got to go to the first ever Kids State Dinner, and I met President Obama. That was like one of the most incredible things, because I'd lost the Jif Most Great Peanut Butter Sandwich. So this was the next contest. And I really wanted to quit. I was really in a kind of, I was pissed. I was unhappy. I was just in a bad place. And my mom really refused to let me leave food that way and to leave my relationship with cooking that way. And so she said, you know what, you're getting back in the kitchen. You're getting back on the horse. You're entering this contest. And I was a little reluctant, and eventually I said, all right, I'll do it. And so then I followed the rules a little bit better this time. And I followed the instructions, and I was like, all right, well, they want something simple and healthy. So I came up with a simple, healthy dish, and then, I entered it, and I won. And then I was like, oh, my God. And then there was a small background check, because, you got to be checked to go meet the president. Yeah. And then, we're in there, and then we're driving around in this bus, driving around the White House. And they're showing us around D.C., So you see the Capitol, you see this, you see that. You see all the sites in D.C., right? And then the bus pulls, into the White House. And they get us all off, and then we're going through the little security check. And then you can see the snipers on the rooftop. And then you see all the guys in the suits everywhere.
That's a big reality check.
Oh yeah, it's massive. It's like, oh my God, look, there's a sniper on the rooftop. Oh my God.
No wrong moves.
Yeah, and so then you're walking in, right? And the Marine Band is playing Disney classics. So there's the Marine Band, and they're all very pretty dressed, and they're all Marines, and they're like these tough guys, and they're playing like Disney songs, and it's just the craziest thing.
I like how you compare the tough guys and they're in pretty dress.
Oh yeah, I mean they're in this like really amazing red coats. They look great. And then you're in there, and the president comes up and he says, "Oh yeah, I have to crash the party. Michelle's having a party, so I had to come crash it." And then he walks by and he shakes one kid's hand on the way out. And he walks out. And then we all have this like, oh my God moment. The president was just here, just shake the kid's hand. And then he comes back and he shakes everyone's hand. And it's like the most incredible moment, because he had the moment where he walked out and he was like, wait, I only shook one kid's hand. I gotta go I gotta go make sure that everyone has that moment. Yeah. And it was just this incredible, like, because there was like a good 3 seconds where we were like, oh my God. And then he came back and we were like, oh my God. And it was just one of the most incredible moments. And it's like one of those rushes of adrenaline that I don't think I'll have quite that much ever again, because, the president comes over and he's like, you get up, you shake his hand, and you just see like this great leader and a super important person spending some of his time to shake your hand.
Yeah, you shook the hand of one of the most powerful men in the world.
We're in the world.
Yeah.
And you just have this like, oh my God moment of like, food brought me here, and my excellence and my attempts and my work at food can produce these incredible results. And it's one of those things that's kind of easy to forget when you're cooking. It's like, oh, well, food can do really cool things, and yeah, it feeds people, and yeah, they're always going to want food, and yeah. But sometimes you have to remember that food can take you to the White House to meet the president. Food can take you to China to win an award. Food can take you to India to judge a cooking contest. Food can take you anywhere and can help you do anything. And in that sense, there is nothing like artistry.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're an artist. I mean, I think that's probably the best phrase of all is you're an artist. Let's switch over and do kind of a lightning round. So it's just short questions, short answers, just a fun chance to get to know you even better. Let's start with, what do you like to do to relax?
I play video games.
And you also rock climb.
I rock climb quite a bit. I can run about a 4 or 5, and I play lots of video games.
So what's your favorite video game?
Right now, I like Apex Legends. It's pretty fun. Okay. I like a lot of others.
Do you do Fortnite and some of those too? No,
I don't do Fortnite.
All I know is our little one especially, like, he loves that game. All his friends are on there, and it's crazy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just next question. All right. So give us a recent movie or TV show you watched.
Recent movie. Terminator. Recently watched Terminator. Classic.
Nice. I wasn't expecting that. That's good. That's good. I like that.
I like action movies quite a bit.
Hey, that's and throwing it back too. So what's a recent book you've read? Or one you would like to read?
Of Mice and Men. I recently read that one. It was pretty good. And another book I'd like to read is Farewell to Arms. That's one that I have not done yet. I really like to read it.
Where is a favorite place? I mean, obviously you visited quite a few, but where's a favorite place that you either have gone or would like to go back to or would like to go? Where's a favorite destination outside of Memphis?
Kyoto's really amazing in Japan. I'd say that London was also really incredible. And, I really love the beach in New York City.
Nice. What's a favorite restaurant outside of Memphis?
Ooh, that's tough.
Could be anywhere in the world.
I would say, there's Sushi Aoki was really, really amazing. I'd say that favorite restaurant, man, that's tough. I would say Gato by Bobby Flay was really, really good. Like that was some good food. And there's a really, really good ramen place and tempura place in Japan, but I got no clue where. Those places were tiny. Like they had 5 seats in them.
Wow.
Like there was a 3-person bar and then 2 tables, and that was it. And I was like, oh my God, what an experience, like outside of the fish market.
So here in Memphis, outside of your own cooking, give us a couple places you like to go.
Let's see. I like to go to Corky's. I like to go to The Bluff. They have a really good burger there. Burger up The Bluff, great. And let's see. I like going to Tsunami sometimes, but I don't go too often.
What do you prefer to wake up early, stay up late? Where does the
totally
creativity...
night out. Totally.
Okay.
I could pull all-nighters. That's bread and butter. Later the better. I love being up late. I hate waking up early.
So yeah, you fall into the musician, the typical kind of creative. That's for sure. Okay, that's good. I can relate to that for sure. Andrew's over there shaking his head. Yes, you do. You stay up late and email us at night, 2 a.m. So what on your end is a favorite quote or something, a bit of advice made by your parents? What's something that kind of sticks in your head as a quote? Or
there's a lot of really, really good advice I've gotten. Gordon Ramsay said, never stop working, and that's something that I really try and keep to my heart, and I always try and do. My aunt says this really amazing thing about how a 30-second decision can ruin your life, and I'm really trying to think about that a lot because I'm in the teen years where 30 seconds can ruin my life. And, I really like Einstein's definition of insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, and I find that one to be very fun and very true.
Very mature of you. So, how old are you now?
I'm 16.
Driving yet, or?
I have my permit. Not driving due to scary conditions on Union Avenue.
Yeah, that could. Well, Union, Poplar, like any of them.
Anywhere in Memphis.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Potholes. And,
all of it.
Yeah. What on your end is something that you would like to accomplish? That you haven't yet.
I'd really like to get an internship at Inuma or Noma. They're really the forefront of cutting edge food. They do a lot with just crazy stuff. They're super famous, and it's kind of a goal to eat there, work there, to just be involved, and they just do incredible work.
I know on your end you are looking to possibly do your own podcast and host that. Also, too, you're doing a lot with charity and trying to use your powers for good on that side. I know also, too, you've talked with Gina Neely and some of the others, but of going and having your own TV show. So when you look at your ability to inspire, what are some of the things that you're really looking forward to with your career?
I really want to inspire people through this charity, but, that's super, super hard to do, and I'm still working on that. I lost a partner and still trying to build it back up, and doing a podcast would be incredible to really kind of help people understand more about food and kind of think more highly of a career in food.
I know usually I would end it with kind of a legacy question, but since you're 16, we'll kind of go this way. What's something that, not necessarily like a secret, but what's something that you want everyone to know about you and your heart, and something that you think, that this is kind of your chance to have the mic. Obviously, it's been your chance for the last 48 minutes, but what do you want people to know about Logan?
I think that at the end of the day, I want you to know that I really try my best to be a nice person at all times. And I think that that's something that can be overlooked a lot. That, at the end of the day, all the success is great and doing all these amazing things is really cool. But at the end of the day, what really matters is if you're a good person, if you hold the door open for people, if you are very nice, and if you can really kind of make the world a better place. And if that's through charity work, if that's through giving back, if that's through giving your time, giving your money, giving whatever, as long as you're making the world better for somebody else, and as long as you're able to know at the end of the day, oh, I'm a good person and I tried everything I could, that's really what matters.
See, a lot of food for thought, listeners. Logan Guleff, ChangeMakers, absolutely. So where do we go, Logan, to follow you, to go online, to get the cookbook? Where would you direct us to stay in touch with you? I know you're obviously all over social media, but tell us the handles and where do we go?
All right, it's all Logan Junior Chef, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Really need the help on Instagram and Twitter. Those are the hardest. And, if you want to pick up the cookbook, it's LoganChefNotes and HalfBakedTales.com. Really cool stuff. And just keep living the dream.
Well, and I think, like I said, you're a fun one to follow because you're always putting stuff out. You're constantly creating. I love that analogy of just being an artist and not being afraid to fail, because using that to create new recipes and dishes and experiences and inspire others to not give up on their dreams is such a huge part of it. So, Logan, thank you for being a change maker. Thank you for all you do, not just here in Memphis, but literally around the world. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. To learn more about our guests and to share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com and follow us on social media using @citycurrent. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.